It is Friday, October 30th. Let's talk PlayStation. Less than 2 weeks to go, everybody, and as of right now, October 30th, if you're in the US, you can actually go pick up your PS5 accessories starting today. They are officially available. We actually saw some online orders get delivered before then, but technically they are available today. We're also seeing PS5 consoles show up in warehouses, so it's really starting to kick off, which is exciting, but here on Let's Talk PlayStation, we have a lot to go over. There's a lot of stories that keep cropping up as we get closer and closer to launch. So as always, first up, we'll start with our PS Plus reminder. November 3rd, the games will change over, so if you haven't claimed October's games just yet, make sure you do that. But come November 3rd, the games will be Hollow Knight, Void Heart Edition, Middle-earth Shadow of War, but also for PS5 owners, Bug Snacks. That's right, we're talking about Bug Snacks, and it will be a PlayStation Plus game, which a lot of people were suspecting based off the fact that you couldn't pre-order it. And it will in fact be a PS Plus benefit only for PS5 owners though, so if you're on PS4, you can't get the PS4 version of the game. It's only for PS5. I would imagine you can still claim it through the mobile app or through desktop, so by the time you get a PS5, you can play the game, but otherwise it's only a PS5 benefit right now, including the PlayStation Plus collection. So this is actually our additional news story here. Turns out they added 2 more games to the PlayStation Plus collection, so that would be Black Ops 3, the Zombies Chronicles Edition, also the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, so now we're up to 20 games total, and also for Final Fantasy 15, that was now upgraded to the Royal Edition as well. So you've got Final Fantasy 15 Royal Edition, which includes most of the content. I think there's one other pack after the Royal Edition, but otherwise 20 games total. Now, we did get one additional detail about the Plus collection, and to be fair, there's still a lot we don't know here, like how long these games are available for, if it's a rotating library. At the very least, we know they're like regular Plus games, so once you claim something, it's on your account forever. You can play them for as long as you're a Plus member, so whether games leave the Plus collection or they get added, you keep them, and these are 20, like Sony describes them, genre-defining PS4 games. This is a really good value. These are great games. You'd be hard-pressed to find somebody that's played all 20 titles and didn't like them or already finished all of them, so good value proposition day one, alongside Bug Snacks. I mean, I really thought this was going to be the only benefit going into PS5, but no, you've got Bug Snacks there as well, and while that game's been memed up recently, I genuinely want to play it, and a lot of people do, so on day one, you're looking really good with just a Plus subscription, and now I'm just curious to find out if, well, you can claim these games without actually owning a PS5, because recently Sony's messaging is really pushing the idea that you have to have a PS5 to get these benefits. So normally, it's never been a problem to claim these games, even if you didn't own that PlayStation console. As an example, across Vita, PS3, PS4, often their cross-buy initiative just retroactively gave you that game across the board, but the way they're describing this, it almost makes it seem as though they're going to make sure that you've activated a PS5 on your ID before you can claim any of these titles, and so I will want to find out right away if you can actually claim games out of the PlayStation Plus collection without owning a PS5, and same with Bug Snacks as well. You won't get the PS4 version, but can you claim the PS5 version? That's what I want to find out. Now moving on to our next news story, as we discussed last week, the press now has PlayStation 5, and as I'm sure many of you are probably aware of at this point, the first embargo lifted October 27th, and unfortunately they weren't really allowed to say too much about the system, so they could show us unboxings, the controller, and the first level of Astro's Playroom. Now we've seen the console, we've heard about the DualSense and Astro's Playroom plenty of times over, so this was rather uneventful. We didn't really learn a whole lot. However, the trophy hunter in me, and many of you, we did learn a cool PS5 feature, and that is PS5 will take a video clip on every trophy that you earn. So on PS4, that was screenshots, and those worked pretty well, although that sometimes landed on a poor area, like a cutscene, for example, where it cuts to black. But on PS5, it will be a short video clip, a few seconds before you actually earn the trophy. And when you go back and actually watch that video clip, it has a cool little swooping animation showing you what that trophy actually is. That does not display when you earn the trophy. That's just for the video clip. And that's really cool. I like that a lot. Now, obviously, this is probably adjustable in that you can turn it off because that would eat up some SSD space. Maybe you could adjust it to just platinum unlocks or gold, something like that. I think that would be pretty cool if they could customize it that way so you can keep it for certain milestones. And for trophies themselves, in the top right corner now, it seems like it's the same noise from before, maybe a little bit altered, but otherwise the same, but it's in the top right like PS3, so that's actually a cool little throwback. It's not as animated as PS4 and Vita, it just shows up, goes away. And also the trophy icons have been adjusted as well. Bronze, silver, gold look a little taller, but platinum is changed the most there. And that's fine, I don't really care too much about that, but there's your trophy news for PS5 at least, and that's really the most that we got out of the embargo lift. Next up, the brand new PlayStation mobile app is now available for iOS and Android, and it's still a little bit of a slow rollout, so not everybody has access to it, but it should reach everybody soon. And I love it so far. It's much better than the previous app, a huge upgrade. It's snappier, it's responsive. You've got messages baked right in now, so you don't need a separate app for that, but there's also voice chat. The PlayStation Store is baked in there as well, so you can buy content and push it to your PS4. And once PS5 comes, there will be some tighter integration there where not only can you purchase PS5 content, send the download over, but you can actually manage PS5 storage and launch games remotely from here. That's great. There's also a quick link to manage subscriptions, so I always hate doing that on the PS4. You can do it right from your phone, and it's just faster. So this underlying rework was definitely worth it, and this is faring much better to me than, say, the brand new desktop site, which still looks very bland and just not very usable. Also, if you recall from last week or the week before that we talked about new PSN avatars being added, which does not happen often, well, we've got more free avatars added. So right now, what should be available are avatars for Destruction All-Stars, Demon Souls, more Ratchet & Clank, more Horizon, more Sackboys on there. So yeah, we just recently got a second wave of brand new avatars. Go check them out. You might find one in there that you'll like. Anyway, next up, the PS4 camera adapter, the thing that you need to continue playing PSVR on your PS5. We finally know how to claim this, and unsurprisingly, you need to give the company the serial number to your current headset to prove that you own it. That way they'll send you a free adapter. And the process is easy enough, but there is one issue that a lot of people are running into. So what I'm going to do is put a link down below to the site that you actually go to claim your adapter. And there are different sites depending on where you live, so make sure you follow the right link. And you're going to complete the CAPTCHA to prove that you're not a robot, put in your serial number, and this is where people have an issue, because after they hit submit, it might say, oops, there's a problem, or call our customer service, or whatever. Basically, if that happens to you, which it probably will, try a different browser first off, but if that doesn't work, what people have been doing is backspacing or deleting it and then re-entering it without reloading the web page or anything like that. So stay on the page, backspace, put it back in, paste it back in, and just do that a few times, and usually that'll go through. And again, try different browsers, mixing it around with that. Hopefully it'll be fixed by the time the video goes live, but that has been an issue even right now that is still happening. So once you do that, then you'll go to the page where you can enter in where you want them to send the adapter, and then you'll be taken care of from there. But weird issue, either way, that's how you get your adapter. Now moving on to some PS5 game news, and we'll start with what is arguably one of our larger stories here, and that's Destruction All-Stars. This game was supposed to be a PS5 launch game, part of PlayStation Studios, right? PS5 exclusive, and it's been delayed to February to be part of PlayStation Plus for 2 months. That's right, this game went from being $70 with one trailer on day one, us not knowing much of anything about it, to now being delayed by a few months to February, where now millions of people will have access to this game with a PlayStation Plus subscription. This was quite possibly one of the best U-turns that this title could have seen, because it really went from $70, nobody's buying this, and they were accepting pre-orders for it. I had one for it as well, to cover it, because quite honestly I figured nobody was going to be playing this game or giving it attention, so I wanted to do that. But it went from $70 to now millions of people playing it. Now, remains to be seen if the game's actually good or not. We're actually going to get a trailer next week, so we will learn more about it soon, and that's great. But this really was a case of nobody's pre-ordering this, because why would they? And now there will be a much larger opportunity. You're really going to have millions of people playing this, and it needs it because it's a multiplayer game, right? It could be another Fall Guys, another Rocket League. I don't know if that's really going to happen, but I mean, Rocket League is actually a great example of this, where many people don't know, but there was a little game on PS3 called Supersonic Acrobatic Rocket Powered Battle Cars, and guess what that was? That was Rocket League. It was actually their first game. I believe it was their first game. But it was the same thing, and nobody knew about it or played it. As an exclusive PSN game on PS3, you know that it's not going to get a whole lot of attention, but Rocket League on Plus obviously did much better, and so this game really needed it. And now I'm just glad that most people will probably, at the very least, try it, right? Because it will be a part of Plus. So if you pre-ordered the game, it's already been refunded to you. I would assume at retail, same deal there. You'll get a refund on your credit card, or if you're at GameStop, you could probably move that credit around or whatever, right? Certain retailers will have options for you. The caveat is that certain bundles that sites have offered for PlayStation 5 pre-orders, that game was included, and so some sites are delaying the entire bundle. I'm sure if you reach out to customer service, something can happen there. I'm already reading that that's getting figured out on their end, depending on where you ordered it from. But either way, this was, I think, the best news we could have gotten for Destruction All-Stars. Next up, Sackboy: A Big Adventure. We've got some new details for this game, like cross-gen play. It is confirmed between PS4 and PS5. And while that's easily assumed, it is important to point out that technically that's not a guarantee because these are two separate versions of the game. So, for example, with backwards compatibility on PS5, we know that if you're playing a PS4 game, multiplayer works no problem, save files transfer no problem, because they're inherently PS4 games. But the second we talk about game upgrades from PS4 to a PS5 version, some save files transfer and some don't. Why? Because they are two different title IDs, two separate games. The developer has to support that, and so same deal here with cross-gen play. Not a guarantee, although this is a PlayStation Studio game, so I would imagine Sony highly encouraged it for this title, and hopefully it'll be a trend that most developers will support when they're doing cross-gen releases. Also, we're learning about a portion of the game called Knitted Night Trials. These are basically very difficult levels that you can run through, and you only get one life, and I love the sound of that because if you've platinumed a Little Big Planet game before, then you know one of the requirements is to go through all the story levels without dying. And some of the later ones can be really fun and also frustrating, and it's just hard enough to where it's a challenge, but it's also not so hard to where it's really overly frustrating. And well, I can already see that I am probably really going to enjoy this game. So that hearing that that's in there, I'm pumped. Now, for Demon's Souls, we did recently get a brand new gameplay trailer, and it looks so good. I am just elated with the fact that this game is going to be available on day one, right? It was great to know that it was coming, but day one is what is really exciting. Anyway, we got confirmation that the 6th Archstone is not in the game, so that is something that fans of the original were really holding out on, that missing cut content. It's not going to be here. Also, no difficulty modes, so they are trying to stay as faithful to the original as possible, where it plays, feels, looks just like the original. So much so, actually, that there are some filters in the game. Crash 4 had so many of these, but there are some filters you can overlay onto the game, like a mirror mode, for example, which will dynamically shift how you play the game. But there's also one that's described as like PS3, where I guess I would assume it washes out a lot of the colors. It's not necessarily a graphic setting, but you're just going to get a color filter that looks more appropriate to the original PS3 version, which is much darker and grimmer looking, because there is so much more going on here versus what was possible on PlayStation 3 hardware. Also, photo mode, that will be in there as well. Should be very robust. A lot of things that you can toggle and alter and change around with. We didn't get too many details there, but it sounds like there will be a lot that you can mess around with in this game. For our next game update, Final Fantasy XVI, Square Enix recently put up a new teaser site for this game, and it gave us a good amount of details about the characters and the lore. There's actually a decent amount on there. So what we learned, main character named Clive Rosfield. He's got a younger brother, Joshua Rosfield. They're joined by their young childhood friend, Jill Warwick. And this world that they're in is called Valisthea, surrounded by all these crystals called Mother Crystals, and I guess this is where a lot of the war and problems occur throughout the game over these crystals. And the typical Final Fantasy summons are called Econs, which are Acons. Well, the first time I read this, I called it Acon, but then I was like, well, that's comic music, so that probably isn't what they're going for. This is typical of Final Fantasy games. You get all this new nomenclature that you have to try to properly pronounce, but that's what we got right now. A lot of cool imagery on there. And once again, this brings the conversation of this game is further along than we're probably thinking. And so I still think 2022, maybe early 2022. I don't know. I mean, again, we keep talking about how soon is this game, and well, the teaser site and the next major news drop. Again, that major news drop in 2021, that will really determine, I think, where we'll be expecting this. Anyway, moving on to our next news story. We had to talk about this. I unfortunately couldn't cover it on LTPS last week. It came out later in the day, but there is in fact a collaboration between Travis Scott and PlayStation. So they put out this ridiculous but also hilarious video that is just, I've watched it like 30 times, I really have. The beginning part there, that's the PlayStation hardware team that made PS5, and then you've got Travis at the end there getting blown away by the PS5 experience that he's about to have. But what this really is, announced on the PlayStation blog, will be a collaborative effort. So what you're going to see is projects of some kind come out between the two. I would imagine shoes are going to be a part of that, and those are going to be expensive. Not even just to buy, because they'll sell out very quickly. The resale value for those things will be very high. This is like my favorite thing that I've seen so far. Honestly, the video was hilarious. But anyway, moving on, we have another update from last week. Plex will also be available day one for a streaming service on PS5. And between that and Crunchyroll, that's already 2 more services from the initial list that we got on the PS blog, so I suspect between now and when PS5 comes out, there might actually be a few more services that weren't part of that initial list that'll be available. For our next news story, it has been confirmed that principal photography has completed on the Uncharted movie, so they're done filming. Now it's just a matter of putting everything together and making sure that it's ready to go for the release July 16th, 2021. And now I just want to know what I wish the world would be in a better place by then, but by the way that's going, it's looking unlikely and a lot of theaters are closing. I would have actually loved to do some sort of theater meetup in Toronto or something, but that was before the pandemic hit. Either way, still cool that the movie's actually done, so this is about as real as it gets. And also, Mark Wahlberg decided to share his mustache on Twitter. So finally, it's been confirmed he does have a mustache for Sully. That one little weird candid shot, I don't know what's going on there, but he does in fact have a mustache. So I think that's about as good as we're going to get here. I don't know if we can really ask for more, but I'm sure that first trailer is going to be interesting. Now, somewhat of a random story here, but it looks like the system architect for Vita, PS4, and PS5 recently remembered that he has a Twitter account because Mark Cerny finally sent out a tweet in over a year. And what does he tweet out? A platinum trophy for Cuphead. That's right, your boy shares a platinum trophy with Mark Cerny. And a reverence for the game, too. He calls it an adrenaline rush, and I agree. It's definitely a challenging game that I encourage everybody to try and play. I mean, I've gone through it like 3 or 4 times now because of Xbox, Switch, PS4, and I think I did Xbox twice, one co-op playthrough with my friend, and I'm still waiting for a physical edition of this game too, and the DLC, but that was so random to see, but also I was like, oh, Cuphead, my boy Mark gets it. Next up, it looks like Sony's recently formed Malaysia support studio is hiring, and one of their job listings is somewhat revealing about what their work could be for. Now, if you don't know, many people seem to miss this, but late last year they formed a new studio in Malaysia, and it's just a support team, so while they're technically a part of Worldwide Studios, they don't make their own games, they provide animation work and things like that to other studios. And in this job listing, it says, and I quote here, "Our animation team is currently working on one of PlayStation's well-known and well-loved franchises. We are looking for talented, highly motivated, and creative animators to breathe life into the next chapter of cinematic storytelling." Now, if you've been keeping up, this is not the first time we've heard this. In fact, this was part of a job listing back in 2018 for what we now know as the Secret San Diego team, working on, the next chapter of cinematic storytelling. The difference here is that it was not referred to a well-known established PlayStation franchise. So, assuming that this Malaysia team is providing animation work for the San Diego team, which they often just refer to it as the Visual Arts Service Group, which is a real thing, just we now know that there is an extra team there that was internally formed to make a brand new third-person action-adventure game, which most people are assuming is Uncharted, especially because back then they were working with Naughty Dog closely, so it's assumed that it's Uncharted. However, we've never had a major indication that it is, but now we know at the very least it's not a new IP. This is an IP that Sony has done before, and that leads more evidence to the possibility of it being a new Uncharted. Exciting stuff. The first job listing was back in 2018, and that is apparently when the studio was formed and this project began, so assuming that pre-production didn't take that long, we might find out what the game is relatively soon, like within a year, but obviously they're not ready to really talk about this game just yet, so we might have to wait a little bit longer. For our next news story, The Last of Us Remastered recently received a patch that dramatically decreases load times. So, for instance, if you wanted to load a new level, it takes well over a minute. Well, after the patch, now it takes 14, 15 seconds, which is a huge improvement just on PS4 alone, but obviously should go without saying that there is some optimization in here readying this game for PS5, and so that is something that we know Sony is encouraging developers to do for some older titles. You can patch in more native PS5 support, even though they're inherently still PS4 games, and things like unlocking the frame rate, bumping up the resolution, or unlocking hard-coded sections like, say, loading, for example. A lot of games are hard-coded for certain load times, and I guess this is just a lot of optimization on Naughty Dog's part. But we had a story like this, I think, 2 weeks ago or something, where a lot of older PlayStation games saw patches when they haven't been patched in well over a year, but this is one of the more noticeable benefits just on PS4 alone, which is super impressive. Moving on, Sony Interactive Entertainment President and CEO Jim Ryan has recently been in some interviews this past week talking about PS5 pre-orders and also some of the strategies that the company will be employing moving forward. And one thing that came up yet again was studio acquisitions and growing their current teams organically. They are very committed to first party, and that's what they're reaffirming here again. Now, I swear, this story comes up every 4 or 5 months, or maybe every quarter, whether it's through a financial earnings call or interviews like this, the company is very committed to first party. So I'm not even sure how much more we can really add to this topic, except when it comes to studio acquisitions, Sony's much more methodical in their approach, slower in evaluating teams to see if they're a good fit for SAE, but also Sony doesn't really have the capital that Microsoft does to buy studios left and right for 2 years straight. They have to be careful and mindful about how they spend that money. And so what we know for Sony's capital right now, at least, is that they're approaching third-party publishers to see if they can make any sort of timed exclusivity deal work out. When it comes to the organic growth, that's much more noticeable. You know, you can look back 10 years at Naughty Dog, Sony Santa Monica, Guerrilla Games, Sucker Punch, and the difference is pretty dramatic. The types of games that they're putting out now, they're beautiful, they're larger than life, they're these massive experiences, and sometimes these teams split up into two to do 2 projects at the same time. They're doing a lot, and that organic growth really shows. And so what excites me about the potential of another acquisition is that we could see a team that we know about their history, we know what their portfolio is, bring them into SAE, and whatever they currently do right now might be 2 times better than that 10 years from now, right? That's what's really exciting about the potential of more acquisitions. Now, when it comes to PS5 pre-orders, obviously demand is very high. In fact, one kind of weird metric that we got here is that in the US, PS5 pre-orders in 12 hours matched what PS4 did in 12 days. So just a lot of pre-orders coming in very rapidly, matching what PS4 did in 12 days, in 12 hours. And, you know, I think Jim Ryan really said it best when talking to GameIndustry.biz about why there's just so much demand this time around, is the difference in where they're at right now. So the one thing that he said, and I quote here, "We are increasingly bullish in terms of the number of people that we may think engage with PS5. Firstly, because we don't begin from a standing start like we did with PS4, when we were coming out of a very lackluster PS3 platform with a low level of networking across the community. Now we are starting with 100 million gamers who we hope to transition very, very rapidly onto PS5. And it's an engaged, tribal, networked community who will be deeply and profoundly engaged with their PlayStation 5, we hope, from a very early moment." Now, Jim Ryan does also openly admit and caution that for day one, everybody that wants a PS5 may not actually get one. And unfortunately, that goes without saying. The console is going to be very in demand. And Microsoft, this happens every single product launch. Whatever gets made and shipped to retailers, it's going to get sold quick. I think what's more important is what does month 2 look like, month 3, month 4, going into the first quarter of 2021. How much availability will be there? Hopefully more than PS4, because that's a good segue to our next news story. During Sony's Q2 2020 financial report, they do mention that they do plan on selling more PS5s versus PS4 within that first quarter, right? So versus what PS4 did the first quarter of 2014, which PS4 did around 7 million consoles, a little bit over 7 million. And so for PS5, they're hoping to sell 7.6 million, possibly more than that. They might be more conservative in their numbers, of course, and this really depends on just how many machines they manufacture, because in theory, if they're able to make 10 million and get them within the fulfillment centers before the end of the first quarter, they will be able to sell all of them very easily, I think. So that's a good number. It does imply that there's more PS5s to go around versus PS4, but it's still probably going to be a little difficult to find initially. Now, they do also say they want to ship well over 100 million PS5s and beat PS4. And, well, PS4 right now is at 113 million consoles sold worldwide. So that's our updated figure there. And 4 consoles shipped in this quarter, 1.5 million, which is actually a dramatic decline year over year. So we're already going to start seeing that huge drop-off in console sales for PS4. And now I think it's really a matter of, I don't think they're going to be able to beat the Game Boy, which would be the next platform up. It's not really a traditional console, but that platform is 118 million in terms of total hardware sales. And so I initially thought that PS4 could probably beat that, and that's where it would stop. It wouldn't be able to go up to the DS or the PS2, but I think it could beat the Game Boy. Still great numbers, of course, nothing to scoff at. And for active PlayStation Plus subscribers, we do have a new number there, 45.9 million, which is up considerably from the same time last year, which it was 36.9 million. So the company's doing very well, and they are being, I think, they're hoping to be bullish in the background, but in terms of their actual reports, they're being a little bit conservative. They did also confirm that for PlayStation 5, it will be sold at an initial loss. A small loss is what they're describing it as, which is more akin to PlayStation 4, actually, because normally consoles are always sold at a loss. You do that to recoup from software sales, things like that, PSN revenue. Nowadays, PSN revenue wasn't really the case 20 years ago. But either way, PS5 will be sold at a loss. But PS4 actually became profitable fairly quickly, within the first year, I believe, PS4 hardware turned a profit. And so that might be the case with PS5. I mean, they are ordering a lot of parts. They are making a lot of these things, and the more you order, the cheaper it is to build the console, and then over time, naturally, prices will start to decrease anyway, so that'll be in their favor as well, but not really surprising. Moving on to our next news story, Sony has confirmed their commitments to accessibility options on PS5. This was a growing concern going into this brand new platform launch, especially for the disabled community, gamers that may have certain ailments, where these options are crucial for their comfort playing on these platforms. And it sounds like right now, at least, day one, PS5 will have feature parity with the accessibility options on PS4. So things like enlarging text, text-to-speech, inverting colors, that's all there. But also, you can control the color scheme or the color spectrum. You can remove those DualSense haptic feedback and adaptive trigger functions, which is really crucial, I think, because that was a huge issue that a lot of people were worried about. DualShock 4 was a comfortable controller for certain gamers depending on, whatever problem they may have had. So not being able to use that for PS5 software and being stuck with a DualSense was a huge concern, but at the very least, you can turn off those features of the controller, and hopefully that makes it a little bit easier. From what we're seeing, Sony's working very closely with this community to try and make sure that the console is as accessible as possible, and I hope that is the case. Being involved in this hobby and having some sort of massive ailment that heavily restricts how you can play games has got to be the most frustrating thing possible. So I hope that there's enough here that will help this community comfortably play games moving forward. For our next news story, if you recall during the PS5 teardown video, we did get confirmation that the console's top and lower shells are easily user upgradable, or at least swappable, right? You can take them off without avoiding your warranty, which is cool, and that obviously told us that Sony's probably going to offer some plates down the road, but also that third-party companies will probably spring up, and, well, that's what happened. We saw PlateStation.com spring up, and they're offering about 4 or 5 colors for PS5, and initially seemed kind of sketchy. People weren't really too sure, and what happened is the site went down, leading people to think that it was an actual scam, but really this was just legal action from Sony, so obviously they weren't too pleased about, one, them using images that were very obviously still PS5s, and the site's name was probably an issue as well. So now they're back up as Customize My Plate Station. All their orders are sold out, and these plates were $40 each. They had like blue, red, chromatic, a black one, obviously. The concern, of course, is that they don't have a PS5, so how do they know if these plates are going to fit all that well? I'm curious as well, so I'll be doing reviews of these plates as soon as possible. And, well, this is the first company that we're seeing, but this might be a viable option for a more finished look, assuming that you don't want to go through, skins, which I think won't be that appropriate for PS5, given that, well, the shells are very... there's no hard edges, right? So you can't get a clean look unless you make a very stretchable skin. And then do you make it so you can fold it inside? And then that would be an issue with the overlap there at the corner. So I don't really think skins are the way to go here. You probably might want to spring a little extra for what would be some of these customizable plates. But obviously when it comes to an unofficial company, you want to make sure that it fits well and it looks stock. So we'll see how this pans out. This market's going to get very interesting, I can already tell. With all of that out of the way, it's time to get to Let's Talk Plus, the weekly Let's Talk PlayStation giveaway where one of you could win a $10 PSN code. I would like to congratulate this viewer right here. I'll be contacting you very soon via email or Twitter. If you would like to win a $10 PSN code, it's very easy. Follow the link down below. Supporting this channel a number of ways can gain you an entry, and I'll announce the winner next week because I'm trying to pay for your games. Those are all the news stories that I want to talk about you all. On Wednesday, we did PS5 leaks and rumors, and so much like we did with PS3 and PS4, we now look back at the 2+ years of leaks and rumors for PS5, and, well, finally grade all these things. And the video was such a pain to put together, but I'm glad at how well it turned out, because it is often very important to have perspective on these things. It's easy to forget everything that we've been listening to for 2 years, but check that out. That'll give you some good idea of what we can expect moving forward whenever we cover these leaks and rumors, right? That's what's always good, that perspective. But now we're less than 2 weeks away from PS5 actually coming out, so we've only got a few more uploads left until the console is officially here. I got a lot of exciting plans for launch, and I hope you stick with me. But until then, that's it. That concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you all so much for talking with me, and I will see you all next Friday.